This is my smoking hot wife and her 1966 Datsun that we bought over a year ago. We've got quite the to-do list to get this thing back on the road again. This thing was last registered in 1995, so it likely hasn't seen pavement in almost 30 years. A year ago when we bought it, the first thing I did was get it running, and it has sat ever since. Until a few weeks ago when I finally had some space between projects, I got it driving up and down the street, but that's all it has done. The car still does need quite a bit of work to be a good, reliable driver. So I got my lady in the garage and we put together a list of everything that it's gonna need. Now, since this is the wife's car, her and the baby are gonna be helping us do all this work. First thing we need to do is get these wheels and tires off all four corners. So we gotta get it lifted up, get it on jack stands. So go grab that jack and we'll get it jacked up. Now, the most important thing at the very top of the list is the brakes, which do not work at all. And of course, even the brake parts for this car are impossible to find. And by impossible, I mean you have to wait until the new old stock parts come onto eBay. So the baby was just about asleep, but we woke him back up. We're gonna go ahead and get the rest of these off, and then it'll be quiet for the rest of that time, so maybe he'll be sleeping. But we gotta get these drums off, and then we got our rebuild kits in here, which is just some new rubber seals. Should be fairly simple. As you guys see here, this is kind of wet with brake fluid. That's what I'm talking about. So this thing here is the wheel cylinder. It's behind this brake drum. And what happens is the seals go bad after they sit for a while because they're just made of rubber and then they leak. I also noticed our hoses have seen much better days. I kind of expected that. Pretty much everything rubber on this car is going to be extremely deteriorated. After inspecting the rest of the car and figuring out what else we needed, I started by getting off these front drums and getting the shoes off, which were absolutely coated in brake fluid, as to be expected. Now, as far as replacing the shoes, I honestly don't know what we're going to do here because you can't find these. People don't remake them. The only thing that you can do is have them relined, but I've yet to find a shop that will do that. And the only other option, as I mentioned before, is finding new old stock parts for sale, which I did order some shoes for this, but turns out they're for an older Datsun, so they're not going to work. There was a guy who used to manufacture front-end disc brake conversion kits for these, but he no longer does so. So at this point, if I can't get the drum brakes to work out, I'm just going to have to manufacture my own front-end disc brake kit, which would be very beneficial but require a lot of fabrication. We have all of our brake components here taken off of the car. Here is both of our wheel cylinders. Now, I did not know that this car had two on each side on the front. So that means we might have to buy another kit. After soaking all the grimy parts, it was time to get these cylinders apart. And the bad news is these seals look brand new, and I was looking at the cylinder and found something I didn't want to see. All right, guys, so the more I'm looking at these wheel cylinders, the more I'm thinking we might just have to convert this thing to disc front brakes, because we have corrosion deep down in the cylinder where this seal actually seals against, and there's really no way to fix that other than replacing the wheel cylinder. Now, those things are like $170 a pop, so I'm going to be spending a couple $100s to redo the front brakes on this thing. Now, while there is a lot of safety benefits of having disc brakes in the front of this car, it does come with its fair share of challenges. Any sort of rotors that I put on the front will need to be machined, it will need a new master cylinder, and I'll need to remake a lot of the lines. Not to mention I'll have to figure out what calipers to use and have to make my own mounting brackets. Now, I'm definitely not throwing that option out. However, just for time's sake, I'm going to go out to my other car, which is a 66 wagon, and pull the wheel cylinders off of that and see if I can rebuild them and put them on this car. Since our discovery on the front brakes, we're going to move on from that for now. Now, I've never taken one of these door panels off, but I do know that you need to get these levers off here. Now, I'm not exactly sure how those come off. I know that they do both push in, so they probably have a spring clip somewhere back there. Not exactly sure how we access that. This thing, this little rubber grommet here is pretty crunchy, so I'll probably just sacrifice that, break it off of there, and then we'll see just how we're supposed to remove this. So I have revealed how this works. Pretty simple, just how I thought. This little sleeve right here comes back, and there's a pin right in there if you can see that black piece. You just need to push that down, get that pin out with a pick, and then these should just pop right off. Now, the reason I'm removing this door panel is to get that lock cylinder out because I need to drop it off with the locksmith and get some new keys made. As of right now, I can't get into the trunk and I can't open the fuel door. Now that we have access to the back of this door lock here, it looks fairly simple. We have a clip here similar to what you'd see on like a brake hose, and another one here. They should just slide over and this lock should come out. So I'll just move that clip, and there we go. Now our lever is detached there. We'll flop that out of the way, and I'll just grab a screwdriver, try to pry this over. Maybe I can do it with my fingers. No, we're gonna need a screwdriver. So I'll pry that out. I'll do that off camera, and then we'll get this lock cylinder out. There's our clip there, and now we can just pop that out just like that. So it's actually day 2 now. That's all we got done on day 1 was taking the brakes off. We got the car jacked up, and I got the door lock out. I also just organized a couple of things around as far as the ignition system parts for the tune-up and whatnot. So really didn't get a whole lot of progress. It kind of stopped me when we found out that those brake cylinders were a little bit wore out. So I'm gonna have to figure that out. I do actually have another 1966 Datsun. That one's a wagon, and I can rob a couple parts off that for the time being. Obviously, at some point, I'm gonna have to replace them, but the wheel cylinders for these, if I want to buy new ones, they're $170 a piece. Don't exactly want to spend that times 4 just to have drum brakes back in this thing. I'd rather spend a bunch of time doing some R&D and maybe making my own disc brake conversion kit for this, because I don't think anyone really has one. So I guess now the next step is bring those locks into the locksmith, and I'm gonna go pull the brake parts off of the other Datsun and see if they're any good. I did just drop off the wheels and tires for the car so that the tires can get taken off so we can polish up the wheels. And I did go to the locksmith and we got some new keys. And if you guys notice here, the trunk's open. We can now open the fuel door, which is really helpful because we need to do some work back here. We're missing our fuel filler neck. Our fuel tank isn't actually even attached. I gotta put the fuel level sensor back in and whatnot. All that stuff is necessary to get this thing to be a good running, driving car. So I'm really glad that I was able to get these keys cut. That means I can go ahead and reinstall that door panel temporarily because I am gonna be remaking these at some point. This stuff is literally just like fiberboard. You just buy a new piece of fiberboard, skin it with something like some fake leather, and you'll be good to go. So now that we have our spare keys made, the wheels are dropped off, I started on the last thing I was gonna do today, which was pull the brake parts off of my wagon. And if you see there, that's not a good sign because they're currently soaking in penetrant fluid. And that is because this right here is a water line on the brake drum that's off of the wagon. It's all scaled up here. I don't know if this thing was sitting in water or just in mud or what, but either way, it caused a lot of corrosion, and I don't think those wheel cylinders are any good. So it's looking like we're just gonna have to go ahead and put a disc brake system on the sedan. So while we didn't get much done in the last 2 days for this video, I am still able to at least check off the locks on the to-do list to get this thing running and driving. And now that we have the locks done, we're gonna be able to get the fuel system done. I can also do the tune-up. I got the tires off, but I still need to get the new tires back on after the wheels are polished up. Brakes is obviously another story. I don't know exactly what we're gonna do yet, but I do have a possible lead on some used parts for a disc brake conversion kit. If the guy has everything we need, I'm gonna buy that from him and we'll put that on here. If not, I'll figure something out. So while this list is still fairly long, I do think that we're going to be able to get this thing running and driving within just a couple of days. So that's all I'm going to have for you guys in today's video. Be sure to hit that subscribe button because you're not going to want to miss seeing this little beauty get on the road. I'm going to be working on this thing daily until it's done and pushing out videos as I make them. So I'll catch you guys later.